Hello and welcome back to the channel. In today's tutorial I'm going to be sharing with you how to cut and sew this underbust corset with bust caging. So if this is something you like, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up. So let's dive right into today's video. So first, here is my pattern paper, and I've gone ahead to mark out my basic measurement, which includes my shoulder to bust, shoulder to underbust, shoulder to waistline, and 5 inches to get my top length. After I was done doing that, I went ahead to mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2. My nipple to nipple is 7 inches divided by 2. I have 3.5. So after that, I just went ahead to draw a straight line connecting all the dots that I made. Next, I marked my shoulder divided by 2 and I came down by 1 inch for shoulder slant. So my shoulder is 14 divided by 2. I have 7 inches. Next, I'm going to mark my chest line or armhole line, which is your bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. And after that, I'll just go ahead and mark what I have on the shoulder, on the chest line, just to make sure I have a straight line at that point, and I'll go ahead to connect. So I'll divide what I have here into 2 by folding my tape and mark. I'll come in by ½ inch there and go ahead to mark my bust circumference divided by 4. Now I'll place my curved rule, connect to the ½ inch at the armhole and take it up. The next step is just to go ahead and mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2, which I've already marked. So I'll be marking my dart intake of 1 inch on both sides of my pattern, and after that I'll go ahead to connect. Now if you're a plus size or you're a bit busty, you'll be using 1.5 inches at this point. So I'll just go ahead and connect, and after I'm done connecting, I'll connect from my bust down to my under bust, and I will also repeat this at the other side of my pattern. But before that, I'll just go ahead to use my marker to outline and also connect at this point and take it all down. So after I'm done doing this, I'll be going up by 1.5 inches from my chest line, and I will draw a straight line at that point. That is where I want my cup to start. I'll go ahead to mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2 and connect. So I'll go ahead and mark a dart intake of 1 inch on both sides. Go ahead to connect it from that point all the way to my bust point, and also repeat it at the other side. So from that point, I'm just going to go ahead to outline it, and the next step is to go ahead to insert my body measurement. I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake, replace and add my sewing allowance. Mark my under bust circumference divided by 4, replace the dart intake and add my sewing allowance. To the waist, I'll mark my waist circumference divided by 4, and after I'm done doing that, I'll measure the dart intake, replace it, and also add my sewing allowance to it. At the top length, I'll mark my hip circumference divided by 4, measure this dart intake, and I will also add my sewing allowance. So for the sewing allowance, I used 1 inch, but I went ahead to reduce that to ½ inch when I was almost done cutting this pattern. So I'll just go ahead and I will cut this out, leaving the part that we need. So the next thing I'll do from here is to go ahead to draw out the sweetheart neckline by connecting this to my chest line this way. So if you want yours to be deeper, you can go down. So from this armhole, I replaced that 2 inches dart intake here, and what I did was just to curve it a little and take it down to the armhole area. At the armhole, if you notice, I came up by ½ inch. So I'll just go ahead and use my marker and connect my pattern. So after I'm done connecting that, the next step I'm going to take is to go ahead to mark about 1 inch away from the armhole point, and I'm going to connect it to my under bust this way. So remember, at first we marked out 2 inches that we have at the dart side, and from that 2 inches I divided it by 1 inch. That is that 1 inch we have at the upper part there, and I connected it down to my under bust and also marked my under bust at this part. So now, just like I said, I went ahead to remark my measurement. I marked my bust circumference divided by 4. So this dart intake, instead of marking 2 inches, I marked 1 inch there and added half inch for sewing allowance. So why I marked 1 inch instead of 2 inches is because I'm not sewing this dress with much sewing allowance, and also when you're shaping it, you find out that the bust side might be loose. So to take care of that, I'm just going to add lesser allowance by the side. At the underbust, I marked my underbust circumference divided by 4, replace the 2 inches dart intake and add half inch for the sewing allowance. So I'm just going to be turning the front and back together. So at the waistline, I'll mark my waist circumference divided by 4, replace the 2 inches and add half inch on this part. So I'll reconnect that point down to my hip, and from the underbust I'll reconnect to my waist. Now I'll just go ahead and cut out this pattern or retrace it. Next, I'll go ahead and draw a line at this point, and I will be snatching my waist. So to snatch my waist, I'm going to be marking half inch on both sides because I want to take out 4 inches from my waistline. That 4 inches, I'll divide it by 4 because I folded my material by 4. So taking out half inch on both sides, you're going to have 1 inch here. Repeat it on the other side of your front pattern, and also do this for the back pattern at both the left and right. You'll be taking out 2 inches from the front and also 2 inches from the back. So totally you'll be having 4 inches taken away from your waistline. So next, I will be marking my bust dart, and to do that, I'll come down by 1.5 inches from my bust point. So how I got that is the difference between my shoulder to waistline in front and my shoulder to waistline at the back. So this happens because there's a bust in front and there's no bust at the back. So I'll just go ahead and outline my darts, and I will be cutting this out. So before going ahead to cut, I'll just go ahead to label my pattern, and I will be drawing out the lower part of the waistline. So I'll place my tape and I will come down by 3 inches from this point, and I'll just connect it. And while connecting this, I won't really go down. I'll leave about 1 inch at the lower part of my pattern, and I will mark that 1 inch here and take it all the way straight. So you want to make sure to blend your dart when you're marking this out, and I will just go ahead to use my marker to outline this. So here is my pattern after I'm done, and I'm just going to go ahead to cut this out. So when cutting this out, I'll just go ahead and blend in my darts by this side before cutting out. So after I'm done cutting out my pattern, this is what I have. So we'll move to the back pattern. So for the back pattern, I've gone ahead to mark out my basic measurement. So my shoulder to waistline for the back is 15.5 inches, because we took out 1.5 inches from the bust to create our bust dart, and at the lower part I have 5 inches to get my top length. So now I'll go ahead to mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2. I'll go ahead to mark it all the way down, and I'll be drawing a straight line to connect. So after that, I'll go ahead and draw a basic dart intake of ½ inch on both sides of my pattern this way, and I will be going ahead to connect this upwards, and also repeat this at the other side. Extend it to the lower part of my pattern, and also repeat this at the other side. So I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4, add my sewing allowance. At the waist, I'll mark my waist circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake, replace and add my sewing allowance. At the blouse length, I will mark my hip circumference divided by 4, add my ½ inch for sewing allowance. So remember, for this pattern, I'm using ½ inch for my sewing allowance. I'll just go ahead and connect. So I'll go ahead and place my tape from my waistline, and I'm going to be marking 3 inches from my waistline. You can also say come up by 2 inches from your waistline. So for the waistline, I'll just take that measurement I have all the way down. So the next step, I will be coming down by ½ inch at this point, and I will extend it all the way to my chest line at the front, and I'll use my marker to outline that. So after I'm done doing that, I'll just outline the sides of my pattern properly, and I will outline my dart to make it visible for you to see. So the next step I'll take from here is to go ahead to draw a style line, or you can divide what you have there into two before drawing. Now I'll just go ahead to draw a straight line, and I'll be repeating the same dart intake I marked for the front pattern, and I'll just take it all the way up and extend it down to the lower part, and I will be using my marker to outline this. So this is what I have after I'm done marking it out. The next step is to create your lacing bar area, and I'll be going in with 2.5 inches from here, and I'll just go ahead to place my ruler, and I'm going to draw a straight line. So after I'm done connecting, I'll just use my marker to mark out. And after I'm done marking out, I'll just go ahead to make a dot on those points to show that I have a lacing bar area here, and I will label my pattern as 1, 2 and 3, and I'll just go ahead and cut it out. So this is what I have basically for the back pattern, as simple as this. So with this, I'll just go ahead and cut this out, and we have come to the end of today's tutorial. And also join us in our sewing video. And if you find this video very interesting and educative, and if you haven't yet subscribed, please hit on the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and also join us in our other videos and in the sewing video of how to make an underbust corset with bust caging. So after I was done cutting out, this is what I have for the back pattern.